Uh, I practice and I take workshops. I'm practicing right now at Bhavan's College. There's an Institute of Holistic Health Sciences. So I'm a visiting therapist over there every Monday, Tuesday and Thursday. I have a certificate that says I'm a doctor. Though it's a different thing that 1 year back, Calcutta High Court decided to declare IBM as a fake university. So all doctors that have come from IBM have become null and void. Anyways, so about me, I've been in this profession for around 5 years. The first year was all about taking therapies, working with more and more people so that I can understand what the entire science is. So from theoretical to practical understanding. And then the next step was obviously, if I have understood the science, can I actually teach it to other people? For 4 years I had been associated with CHI, which is California Hypnosis Institute of India. Recently I've just moved out and set up my own institute, which focuses on conducting hypnotherapy workshops for healthcare professionals, which means psychologists, medical practitioners and so on. And there are other smaller modules which are for 2 days, which is based on using hypnosis and NLP for self-development. Which then brings us to the topic for the day, which is hypnosis in day-to-day life. What is hypnosis? It's getting in the alpha level. Okay, so that's an answer from someone who has already had some idea of hypnosis. Brilliant. What else?
Awakening your subconscious mind and getting help from subconscious mind for your any actually goals.
Okay. So getting help of your subconscious mind, awakening your subconscious mind, which then presupposes we have something called a subconscious mind. What else?
Spell.
Okay, it's a spell where you can influence and control people. By the way, influence and control are two different words. Huh? So for influence the answer is yes, for control the answer is no. What else? The important thing is that the conscious mind has to be put to sleep. Okay. Okay, brilliant. So which means our understanding of hypnosis has evolved at least somewhat from a spell where you could control people, you could make them act like donkey, monkey and so on, or make them commit crimes, to a state where it's for our benefit, it's for our welfare, so as to say. Yet it's not the complete understanding, because hypnosis in its classical sense is defined as hypersuggestibility. What is hypersuggestibility? Subject to suggestions, which means a person who is in a hypnotic state, his mind is more receptive to suggestions. Okay, again the word is receptive. There is no element of control. He is more or she is more receptive to suggestions, which means the client may not be in a relaxed state. The client may or may not be in a trance-like state. The conscious mind may have been put to sleep or may not have been put to sleep. Hypnosis per se is simply a state where the mind is more receptive. That's about it. And that's why this understanding is very important. A lot of us, knowingly, unknowingly, have been using hypnosis in our day-to-day life, sadly to create problems. Again, since our presupposition is hypnosis requires a relaxed, trance-like state, we don't equate the entire process as hypnosis, when technically it is a hypnotic state. So where the mind is more receptive to suggestions. Now, what does mind do? What is it that the mind does? Thoughts, feelings and actions. All three of them are controlled by the mind. And these three are more or less everything there is to our life. Right? Okay. Which means every problem that we have, knowingly or unknowingly, is a result of these three things. And in order to resolve these problems, we have to work with one or all of them. How many of us feel we have control over our thoughts? Complete control? Okay. Feelings? No? Okay. And actions, I assume, are a result of thoughts and feelings? At least in the long run?
Control actions, but controlling the thoughts
and actions also we can control in the short run. So for example, if you have done something wrong to me, in my head you have done something wrong to me, When I look at you, I feel angry. What will I do? I can control my anger. I may not have an outburst on you. But if I keep meeting you every day, how long will I not have an outburst on you? And if I can control my outburst on you, will there be a possibility of me having an outburst on someone else who has not done anything wrong to me? So any which ways that behavior would get manifested in some area of our life. It may not be with the same person, but it will be with some other person.
So, we talked about outburst on another person. I would like to know, is the outburst always on someone who is inferior to you?
In most cases, yes.
Someone who is powerful than you, you cannot go and do anything to him.
In most cases, yes. Because if someone was more powerful than you, and if you had an outburst on them, let's say if it was your boss, the next day you'll be out of your job. If your wife is more powerful than you, next day you'll be out of your house. So,
Am I right in believing that the process of hypnosis is for one to be more aware about oneself? A lot of us live in a world which we feel is real, but our real self, which is in the subconscious, we use only 10% of our conscious mind and 90%, if it's true,
Correct.
subconscious mind.
Correct.
So if you don't know the subconscious, you don't know yourself. And the subconscious is full of past experiences, past incidents, which make you what you are.
very true. Plus, it's also a process of self-awareness, because then we realize how people around us, knowingly or unknowingly, have been influencing us. Hypnosis, in simple words, is nothing but the art of either influencing someone or getting influenced. Now, if you understand the process, obviously, you will only allow those people who are thinking of your welfare to benefit you, to influence you, and reverse.
You cannot link hypnosis with meditation. They're different.
In a way, yes, because in meditation, you are influencing yourself.
To meditate and have things is not hypnosis.
It is in a way, because there you are influencing yourself. See, influence as a process is two ways. One, I can influence you to do something. Second, I can influence myself to do something. So, for example, if I want to quit smoking, let's say, okay, one is I can go to you, who is a therapist, who can put me in a hypnotic state and work with my smoking habit. Contrary to it, if I know the process, I can use meditation or hypnosis, whichever name you would like to give it, and do the same process with myself. As we go ahead, we'll talk about meditation also, because it's more or less the same thing. The only difference between meditation and self-hypnosis, in its classical sense, is meditation is more about awareness. Hypnosis is about, once you are aware, what do you do with that awareness? So what's the next step post awareness? Okay. Now, so quickly, I'm sure all of you have already seen this model of mine, but just to recap it quickly, if you consider this as the mind, then you have the conscious mind, which is 10 to 12%, as you rightly said, and the functions of this conscious mind are:
Day-to-day activity.
it thinks, logics, feels, decides, interprets all the information that we come across, and makes decisions for us. What are the functions of the subconscious mind, which is 88 to 90% or 6,000 times more powerful?
Mainly, it acts under the influence of consciousness,
Okay. And
mental beliefs, or your experiences, previous experiences.
so it's a storehouse. That's one. It's the storehouse of information. And second, it controls our involuntary body movement. This is where it becomes very important. Why does it become more important over here? Because anything that I'm doing in my life right now, which I don't have conscious control over, is in a way being governed by the subconscious mind. So if we take the smoking example again, if I really want to quit smoking, but when I go near a cigarette and I feel like picking it up, conscious mind is telling me it's not good for me. So I realize I should not be doing it. But it's just like an automatic robot that my hand goes towards the cigarette, I put it, bring it closer to my mouth and I lit it. Right? So who's controlling it then? The subconscious. Why would the subconscious be controlling it this way?
Because the body says you need the cigarette.
Really, does the body say we need the cigarette?
Some part of the brain is addicted to the cigarette of the nicotine that is there. And it says when the quota becomes less, it says I want to have this.
Okay, so let's understand how this conscious mind and subconscious mind works. And this is going to be slightly different from whatever model you have come across. Okay, at least I hope. You have all seen a driver and a passenger in a car. If you had to equate conscious mind to one of them, driver or the passenger, who would that be?
Driver.
The conscious mind will be the driver. Who decides where the car should go?
The taxi is fascinating.
The passenger, right? So who then becomes the conscious mind? The passenger. Driver is subconscious because based on the end objective that you give to the driver based on its connection with the latest GPS systems and other drivers is supposed to find the most appropriate route for you. Yes? Which the driver would do if you allow it to. But if as a passenger I start telling the driver कि नहीं, you have to take a particular route only. Okay? So can I clear this off? So let's say I have to go from VT to Churchgate right now. There are maybe 3 different routes through which I can reach Churchgate. There is route 1, there is route 2 and there is route 3. As a passenger, when I tell the driver I would like to go to Churchgate, and if the driver has all the GPS technologies available, obviously he would know which is the best way to reach there. Yes? So the driver tells me that, sir, route 1 is a long route but there is no traffic at all. We'll reach there really quick. But as a passenger then, I decide to overrule him. Ki nahi, route 2 hi lo. Now once when I say this, what will the driver do? Would try to maybe tell me ki nahi, sir, I'm telling you let's go from route 1. So that's what happens in smoking. When I smoke for the first time, my body actually creates a discomfort. But then what do? We tell the body, you know what, you don't know anything. Shut up, let me smoke. And I start smoking. Now if you have a particular driver who remains with you every day and he realizes every day you have to go from VT to Churchgate, you overrule him and you tell him ki only take route 2. By the 5th or the 6th day, would he even ask you? He already knows no matter what he says, you would want him to take route 2. Now that's what happens. So the subconscious mind starts operating your automatic behavior based on the preconditioning that you have done for it. Now either the conditioning may have been done by you as an individual or may have been done by your parents or your relatives or your teachers. And that's one of the reasons why the conscious mind also is supposed to play the role of a guard, which needs to guard the subconscious mind from unnecessary information that gets in. So let's say someone right now tells me that Nitin, you are not good enough. You will not be able to speak in front of this public. And if my conscious mind was not acting as a guard, what will happen? The information will go in, the 6,000 times more powerful. Now this will start playing a role in my life. And maybe though I am very well prepared for this particular talk, I may not be able to speak. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. So then the conscious mind is supposed to throw out this information. But as we have it with our conscious mind, it can only focus on limited things at a given point of time. So if you have ever seen a movie where a song is playing, there are so many people on the screen. Can you focus on everyone? Do you know what is the last dancer in that particular sequence doing? No, you don't. You can only focus on those 2, 3, 4 central characters. Or you may choose to focus on 2, 3, 4 other characters. It's almost impossible to focus on all of them together. Which means the conscious mind realizes this. And hence comes up with an alternative mechanism. Now before we go on to that alternative mechanism, I would like you to look at this video. Just read what it says and follow the instructions. Count how many times the ball is passed. So how many of you actually got the answer correct as 16? You did? How many else? Okay, so one of you. Now this is not the important part. The part which is important is after this. How many of you saw the gorilla? Okay, 1 and 2. And if you did spot the gorilla, how many of you did spot the curtain changing in the background? The color of the curtain changing. So let's rewind it. So the gorilla walks in, the curtain changes, and one of the girls has walked out. Yes? So do you realize how, though we are seeing things right in front of us, yet we are actually not able to see them?
Because you are preoccupied with the counting.
Because you're preoccupied with the counting, which means whenever you're preoccupied with something, there's a lot of other information which may go into your subconscious. And hence the mind has to come up with a mechanism where they can have, all the regular automatic things can be processed by itself. You don't have to focus on them. And that's where what we call as a filter that develops. And it's called the critical filter. What is this filter? It's nothing but what we commonly call or term as conditioning. In other words, our beliefs and our value systems. What do these beliefs and value systems do for us? Ideally, they are supposed to guide us, right? And they are supposed to protect us because they are supposed to decide what information is going to be allowed to go in. And once it's allowed to go in, how will this information get stored over here? Yes? Okay. So let's go back to the previous example of someone telling me, Nitin, you are not good enough. Now let's say I have been brought up with a regular dosage of information saying, Nitin, you are brilliant, you are very confident, you will always be able to win over crowds. Now since my belief says I am very good, will this suggestion be accepted that I am not good enough? No. So my critical filter will throw out the information and will protect me. But how many of us are brought up with this positive reinforcements? Rarely. Which means I have been brought up by being told, Nitin, you are good for nothing. Your friends are better than you are. You always fail when it's most important. You don't know how to manage yourself in front of other people. A lot of children who have issues with maths, you'll be surprised how in most of their cases, the first lecture that they are attended on maths, the teacher tells them, maths बहुत difficult है. कितनी भी मेहनत कर लो, कुछ नहीं आने वाला है. So what does the child say? छोड़ना इतनी मेहनत क्यों करने का, जब कुछ नहीं आएगा तो नहीं आएगा. Right? Now that's what our filter does. It's ideally supposed to protect us, but because we are not aware of this, and see, I'm not saying that our teachers or our parents are doing it intentionally. They're not. Their objectives, their intentions are very positive. They feel they'll motivate us by doing so. But how many of us actually get motivated by such suggestions? Very few of us.
May I say this?
Sure.
I know a case, and that's why I've come here. There's this very particular fact. He's been brought up to believe that he's brilliant, say in music, alright? As he grows up, he develops such a complex, he finds that people who have studied with him, who are very average and ordinary are way past him. And he's developed such complexities in his life that he has to go through psychotherapy or whatever else. So there are very often these influences of parents going into your childhood, which remains in your subconscious, can be very dangerous in terms of living a so-called normal life, and I don't want to define the word normal.
True.
Isn't that so?
Yeah.
It can happen, and therefore we actually tell people when you are bringing up your children, don't go overboard with positives also. See, at the end, life is about balances. If I understand that there's a mistake which took place, and I can learn from that mistake, and every mistake that I commit, I can learn from it. Now, this is a basic belief system which is good for us. But if I start believing I can never make a mistake, okay?
That's what happens. Am I right in using there is neurosis, which may be represented by me, but there is psychosis. The psychosis is a person who mistakes facts for fantasies, which are his, and
Fantasies for facts.
Fantasies for facts. I mean, one can see it.
True.
But what's the help? Does hypnosis help in these situations?
Hypnosis can help, but we recommend people who are not from psychiatric backgrounds should not be using hypnosis with these clients, because they are already actually in a hypnotic state. You have to pull them out. Now, anyone who does not know psychiatry may end up creating a further problem for the client. You have to. So especially when you're working with any client who is a psychiatric client, okay, it should always be worked upon in consultation with the psychiatrist, or it's a better idea to refer them to a person who is a psychiatrist and hypnotherapist both. That saves them a lot of cost basically. Okay. Now, and the second is, how is this information stored? Why is both of these important? Because we've already established subconscious 6,000 times more powerful. And when I say how is this information stored, it also means it's stored as a pleasure or a pain. The best way of understanding this is maybe with the help of an example. I have two bosses, one who always comes and shouts at me, another one who always comes and has some positive words for me. Okay. So the boss who always comes and gives me positive words is a pleasure. The one who always shouts at me is a pain. Today, for some reason, the boss has always had positive words for me, has had a bad day, comes and shouts at me. What will be my first reaction? Will it really be pain? Or will it be, boss, what's gone wrong? Is there something wrong today? You look out of sorts. The moment you say this to your boss, what does the boss realize? You know what, you have not done anything wrong. And may even actually tell you sorry, which then becomes a pleasure. So though what the boss did should actually have been painful for you, it remained pleasure because that's how your critical filter decided to perceive the information. And that's where perception becomes very important. Now let's make it a bit more interesting. The boss who always comes and shouts at me today has had a change of heart. Comes and tells me, you know what, you are one of the best employees I've ever had. What would you tell him? सीधे बोलो ना क्या काम है.
Absolute reality.
Now the moment you tell this to your boss, what will happen? He'll tell you, you know what, this is why I hate you, because you don't realize that people can be good to you without any reasons. And now he'll fight with you. So what should have actually been pleasure remains pain. Why? Because we as humans rarely respond to what's happening in front of us. We actually respond to a past image of what's happened with us previously. Okay? And that's one of the reasons why we don't accept suggestions. So let's say my belief system says I'm not good enough. Now you come and tell me, Nitin, you have given a brilliant presentation. It was superb. What will I tell you? Generally my first response would be, यार the presentation was okay, जिसने PPT पे काम किया था उसने बहुत मेहनत की थी. So I am not that great. It's basically PPT which was very important. Or I may say, I had one of those lucky days. Or the audience was brilliant. Though audience matters a lot. Okay. Yet finally it's also upon the person who's delivering. If you keep a balance that, yeah, I know I've done a good job and audience supported me a lot, it makes complete sense. But the moment you start saying, no, I'm not good enough, it's just because of something else that the delivery was good. Then what does that tell us? Critical filter. And you'll come across a lot of people like these. So if we recap everything that we have done till here, Where do we analyze information? Conscious mind. Where do we store information? Where do we have, okay, if you compare this to a computer, what will be the CPU? CPU, where you're processing information. Conscious mind.
Person who is operating the CPU will be just like a taxi and the passenger. The same way to operating the computer is the subconscious mind.
Okay, so in this case we are not looking at the person, we are looking at as an individual. If information comes to me, where do I analyze information? In my conscious mind. And where do I store it? In my subconscious mind. So if I have to equate myself with a computer, my conscious mind then becomes the CPU, and what becomes my hard disk? Subconscious mind, memory. So where do I have rules of my life?
Rules are in the conscious mind.
Conscious mind. Where do I have my experiences? Subconscious mind. Now your rules and experiences are like two wheels of the bicycle of life. As long as they are coordinated, life is good. Life is brilliant. But the moment there is lack of coordination, we have problems. Let's understand how the mind works to understand this. I think I'd given this example in 2010 when I was here last time. So let's say I am a person who has taken a birth in a family where non-vegetarian food is not allowed. So my rule says no non-veg. I've never had an experience of eating non-veg. Yes? Brilliant. Now when I go to a restaurant where non-vegetarian dish is being served, what will I do? I'll not sit on that particular table. I'll find another table, right? Or I'll find another restaurant. No problem, no conflict, life is good. I am a person, let's say, who has taken a birth in a family where it's all about non-veg. My rule says eating non-veg is good. My experience says eating non-veg is pleasurable. So the moment I enter into a restaurant where non-veg dish is being served, what do? I have it. Again, no conflict. So rules and experiences are in conformity. But what if I attend a spiritual class where my spiritual guru tells me in order to become spiritual, you have to quit non-veg? Abhi I've joined a class, I've sat through the class. Initially, I would say, let me see if I can stick to what this person says. Now the rule says no non-veg, experience says non-veg is pleasurable. Now I get into a restaurant where non-veg dish is being served. My mind is telling me no non-veg. So consciously I'm telling myself no non-veg. But somehow my feet are automatically taking me towards the dish. Once I reach over there, though I can't because I want to stick to my rules, at least initially. ऐसे खाने से मना किया, smell करने से तो मना नहीं किया है. So I smell the same. Yes? Okay. And then I may still try to control myself. I'll go and sit on a different table. I'll start eating vegetarian food, which is what happens with a lot of us. Till a friend of mine comes and tells me, Nitin, you're missing chicken tikka. Man, it's amazing. Now there's this water that's starting to come out of my mouth. Another person comes and tells me, and I say, chal gravy to kha ke dekhta hu. Chicken khane ka mana kya hai? Gravy I can have. I have gravy. And then finally, since there's a lot of conflict in my mind, and remember the client does not like conflict. It likes harmony. Now can I change my experiences? No, because the critical filter stops me from getting into my subconscious. So what can I change? My rules. So I start rationalizing. So why am I not eating non-veg? Because my spiritual guru has told me in order to become spiritual I have to quit non-veg. Okay. But wasn't it God that decided I should take a birth in a family where non-vegetarian food was allowed? Yes, it was God. So can I go closer to God by debating God's judgment on where I have taken birth? The answer is no. So I convinced myself, you know what, non-veg has nothing to do with spirituality. Not to say whether it has or it has not, but the idea being I'll still go back to my original rule saying eating non-veg is fine. Now vegetarian, non-vegetarian, it's not a problem. It's a small thing, you can live with it, you can let go of it. If you take the example of smoking, especially where it's now reached a state where it may actually end up creating a lot of problems for you. Now what happens? The same thing. My rule says no smoking because doctors have told me it will create a problem for me. My experiences say, but every time I'm stressed and I pick up cigarette, I feel relieved. So the moment there is stress, the mind is not even thinking, my hand automatically gets into my pocket. If I have a cigarette, I'll take out the cigarette. If I don't have a cigarette, I'll call up a friend who has a cigarette. Right? And then what happens? I continue in this perpetual game of repetitive behavior and guilt, which is a double whammy. Because now, not only is this going to create problems for me in terms of my health, every time I smoke, I feel guilty also. That pata hai I should not smoke, still I continue to smoke and I'm not able to control myself. Yes? And that's where hypnosis becomes important. So what hypnosis does? It's simply, through a set of processes, helps you bypass your critical filter and gives you an entry into the subconscious. Again, it bypasses the critical filter, not the conscious mind. So if you have consciously decided, I want to smoke, come what may, no amount of hypnosis is useful. If you have made a decision, I want to buy a particular mobile and a particular mobile only, no amount of salesman's tactics to influence you will work for you. Why? Because consciously you have already made a decision. But when is it that hypnosis becomes important? When consciously either you have decided something that you are not able to do, or consciously you are in a state of confusion. Post which, it's the critical filter which is making a call for you. The only thing that hypnosis does is it helps you bypass this critical filter. Now this is hypnosis in its theory. Give me examples where you feel hypnosis has been playing a role in your day-to-day life.
What about justification? Justify.
Advertisements.
When you just a second, I'll first answer this. Justifications happen because your rule says something else, your experiences say something else, and now you're not able to change your experiences. So in order to bring them in conformity, we start justifying. So again, when I talk about cigarettes, a lot of people will tell you after trying to quit smoke, कि एक दिन तो सब जने को मरना है यार. Can you guarantee that I'll live longer by not smoking? Now there are no guarantees. So they say, so may as well live a chilling life. So they rationalize the fact that they are changing their rules again, knowing that it may create a problem for them in terms of their health.
Because nowadays everyone does anything and justifies. So it does.
See, again, justifications can be divided into categories. One is justifications for others and justification for self. When I'm talking about changing the rules, it's justification for self that we are talking about. Justification for others, well, in my head, I've already decided this is what I want to do. I don't really care what you feel. But since I would not like you to feel bad, I end up justifying it for your sake, which is then maybe outside the purview of what we are talking about. You're saying something.
Advertisements.
Advertisements is a classic example of hypnosis. Again, if we revisit hypnosis based on everything that we have done, it's a process that takes a person into a hypersuggestible state where the mind is more receptive to suggestion, is often compared to daydreaming or the feeling of losing yourself in a book or a movie. So when you're looking at an advertisement and that advertisement entices you into buying a particular product or a particular brand, what is that advertisement doing? It's trying to influence you. It's trying to suggest this is a product that you should buy. If you get influenced by that advertisement, then you had gone into a hypnotic state. Yes? When you're watching a movie, you know it's a movie. No one is really going to die in their real life. But still, when there's a scene where there's a possibility that the actor may end up dying, there's this part which says, marna nahi chahiye yaar. You should have survived. Isn't this bypassing my conscious and critical? Because I'm not actually analyzing it for what it is. It's creating a connect somewhere in my space where I start associating with that particular character. TV programs. I had one of these clients. This was amazing. The client comes and tells me, Nitin, my relationship with my mother-in-law used to be amazing. So when people say used to be, you obviously realize there's something wrong. So the next question was, why used to be? She says, because then Ekta Kapoor happened to us. And I wondered, okay, what does this mean? So she says, Nitin, then, there were a lot of these serials that started coming in. I and my mother-in-law religiously would every day sit and watch the programs. And then every time there was a fight in that program, in the next couple of days I'll have a fight in my house. Subsequently, when the fight will get resolved in the program, in the next few days the fight will also get resolved in my house, and I have no idea what the fight was about and how did it get resolved. It just was happening automatically. Why are these serials so powerful and so successful? Because they're able to create a connect with you. They make you feel, oh, you know, this character is like me. You understand logically there is no sense to it. It's happening in a screen. Yet at a very inner subconscious level, you start feeling, this girl is like me, or this boy is like me. I have the same problem that a normal husband has, or the husband in the television has. Coincidentally, a lot of extramarital affairs have been reported post these serials came up. I don't know if there's a correlation between the two. Other areas where we have seen hypnosis being used actively. Supermarkets. You go to buy a ketchup, you end up buying everything except for a ketchup. There are these huge free. Or if you buy worth rupees 2000, you will get a gift of 1000 rupees for 500. Okay. Or special offers on particular brands. Now what are all of these things trying to do? They're trying to influence you. Plus it's a very hypnotic process, because if you see it, there are so many products that the conscious mind actually cannot focus on everything that exists over there. Now of all of these things, there is one thing that is being highlighted, which is free or which is buy. So the mind says, चल खरीद लेते ना यार, 200 रुपए की तो बात है, but that 200 रुपए 10 बार मिला के 2000 हो जाते हैं. And then someone will tell you 2200 के ऊपर कुछ और आपको free मिलेगा. So you end up spending another 200 rupees. Sales again is a good example. I had bought I don't remember the brand, but I had bought a shirt from a particular brand which was not in sale, and I had bought it for around 1600. 3 months down the line there was a sale, and in sale the same product was available for 1800. So then you have companies that will tell you buy one get 4 free, and that offer is valid all throughout the year. So I understand offers in a particular time, but that's an offer that's valid all throughout the year. So why not just reduce the price of the shirt? No, why? Because people like that idea. एक के ऊपर 4 free मिला है. मतलब it's actually unheard of in a way. A lot of sales executives would build you up to make a sale. Now they'll tell you, sir, would you like to increase your income? Which person in this world will tell you no for this? You say yes. Would you like that investment to be safe? You say yes. And then they start asking a series of questions. By the time they reach 6th or 7th question, you're not even listening, you're just nodding your head. And then they say, so we have a brilliant product for you. Would you like to hear the product out? Abhi 6 question pe agar yes bola hai. So out of courtesy you end up saying, अच्छा चल दिखा दे यार. And many of us even end up buying the product actually. What is that? It is hypnosis. Oh, religion is it's like the most powerful hypnotist available are people who are from the religious groups. They can make you do anything in the name of religion, right? And then finally when you question them, they will tell you, मैंने नहीं कहा है, कृष्णा ने कहा है, so if you want go and debate with Krishna. और मैंने नहीं कहा है, Jesus ने कहा है, so if you want go and debate with Jesus. I am just saying what they have told you. Or the same can be the case with Prophet. So though they are giving their interpretations of what was, they justify it by using names of gods or gossips or authority figures. Figures that are beyond questioning. Also because they are not alive. So even if you wanted to question, you had to die first. Spiritual groups is another one. I have nothing against spiritual groups and religions. By the way, I genuinely feel if you understand them correctly, they can be one of the most important factors of your life, subject to terms and conditions. Now, when you go to a lot of spiritual groups, what are they doing? ideally spiritual groups were supposed to be about bringing about a positive change in the lives of people. Though that remains as one of the objectives, sadly that's no longer remain the primary objective. The primary objective has now become to make the group bigger and larger. Now when it's bigger and larger, obviously you can't actually help people resolve their problem completely. Because if you help them resolve their problem completely, why would they need to come back to you? So if you want a growth oriented process, you need something where people will get results, but the results will be temporary. And forget spiritual groups, a lot of trainers do this. Okay? I know of so many people who did workshops on forgiveness. Okay? It's a brilliant concept. Sadly, after every 30 days, you will see the same people sitting in the same workshop forgiving every new person every other day. So at least if they keep forgiving different people, I can understand. In every workshop, the person that they're trying to forgive remains the same. And after every workshop, you ask them, they'll tell you, you know what, I felt so relieved, I actually forgave the person. 15 days, life is good. 16 days, something happens again and the anger comes again. Now when you go and tell them, but is forgiveness actually helping you? What will they tell you? 15 दिन का relief तो मिला था ना. So it's helping me, but maybe I'm not able to sustain it. How many times would you want to go through the process? And that's where belief comes in. You talk to a people who are convinced about effectiveness of forgiveness in the way it's promoted. Okay? And if you tell them that forgiveness doesn't work, you'll have a huge debate. But the fact shows you have been going through the same process every month and you're not getting results.
No, there are some who do get. There are some who do get.
And when do they get results?
So why they believe in forgiveness, not in a way that is said, but from outside that home. Where it has no sort of connection
It comes
with
from the
yourself.
outside.
Yeah.
From the inside.
Okay.
Where they are detached, that means it is forgiveness is like a part of life.
See,
And release the bonds.
what he says is right, because see, forgiveness just बोलने से होता नहीं है. You have to have that mindset.
So some people have
So
it.
it depends on personality
So
also.
that's what I said. So you cannot say all do not.
No,
There
yeah.
are some that have. That's
Okay.
what I'm
So the reason I love talking about forgiveness is because this is one topic that can actually stir any group into debates. Okay?
Not only forgiveness, anything. You cannot negate it absolutely.
True.
There are
In fact, that's the reason why I quoted by saying, or I said, that in its classical sense or the way people promote it, the idea of forgiveness is actually very outdated. People who get results in forgiveness, they actually get results because they understand something far deeper. Now, what is this deeper that they understand? Let's look at the flip side of forgiveness first before we go on to understanding how it works and how it's related to hypnosis, so as to say. When I say I can forgive someone, in my mind, I'm already convinced that the person has done something wrong to me. So if I'm already convinced about the idea that something wrong has been done to me, no amount of forgiveness would work. Because then forgiveness generally becomes an ego statement. You know, I have the ability to forgive someone. Plus, even if I am able to let go of the imprint completely, what happens when the same person comes and does something similar next time? I'll have the same problem again, and then I'll have the same process again. So what is the solution to this? The solution to this, from my limited perspective, is when something has happened to you or with you, you are an equal party in it. Sure, you are an equal party in it. Sure, you may have had a very good friend whom you trusted blindly and you entered into a business with him, and because you trusted him blindly, you signed on a paper without reading. But whose fault was it? Yours. So, which means if I would have learned to keep my business and my personal relationships separate, in short, if I would have just applied common sense. If I'm signing a paper, let me read it once. Okay? Will this problem have happened? The answer is no. So then forgiveness has an extra element to it. What have I learned from this particular process to ensure that the same thing doesn't happen again in future? Which sadly no one talks about. You look at, which basically requires a shift on perspective. You look at any classical meditation on forgiveness. Which forgiveness meditation talks about changing the perspective about what has already happened to you? At least I've come across none. And that's the reason why I say in its classical sense. Though forgiveness, if you understand it correctly, again in my limited perspective, is about forgiving yourself. That I allowed myself to be in that position where things happen. Okay. Now if I understand this, I understand in order to forgive myself, what do I have to do? I have to first bypass that belief that everything that happens to me happens because of other people. In the world that we are living in, when something wrong happens to me, what is the first thing that I do? I look at kiski galti hai. There's an interesting story. You know how this starts, how this develops? When a very small child falls in our house, what is the first thing we do? We pick up the child and the next is hug him, and the child is crying. So, isne giraya? Right? Now the child realizes, sala gira main, but galti is floor ki. And the child learns that no matter what happens, correct. So no matter what happens, if something wrong happens to me, I am not at a fault. There has to be someone in my environment, someone in my surrounding who is supposed to be at a fault. Now as the child starts growing up, obviously the child starts inculcating the belief strongly. So when you have to forgive someone, which in other words means you have to forgive yourself, you have to first bypass that critical filter, that belief that no, I can actually be responsible also. You have to acknowledge this belief, which is where hypnosis comes into play. Another one is even more important, because with all of these, at least people know what they are doing. With doctors and psychologists and psychiatrists, they don't even know how hypnosis is being used in their profession unknowingly. So I'll give you an example of a doctor that my friend had gone to, had been diagnosed with diabetes, was a smoker. So he went to a doctor, the doctor told him, you know what, now you'll have to quit smoking because smoking and diabetes is a dangerous combination. He looks at the doctor and he thinks, you know, he makes sense. Abhi shit happens, I have diabetes, so maybe it's a good idea to quit smoking. And he tells the doctor, so I'll quit smoking today onwards. And I've known this person for some time. This guy has had the ability to quit whatever he wanted to quit simply by saying so. What should the doctor say? Congrats that you have quit. What does the doctor tell him? Oh, it's not going to be so easy. Tomorrow morning when you get up and when you see some of your friends smoking, you will realize how pleasurable smoking was. And then when you go to your office and you have had a fight with your boss, you will realize, oh, smoke helps me relieve stress. Then when you are alone, you will actually also realize how smoke gives you company. Now what is this doctor doing? He is actually giving suggestions that you will not be able to quit. Sadly with this person, this is precisely what happened. Okay. Luckily for him and for me, both, me because I knew him so I could use his example in the class, him because since he knew me, we were able to reverse the process. I told him, but you have quit smoking 1,000 times before, so what stops you today? He says, yaar, सुबह उठता हूँ तो actually लोगों को देख के लगता है कि you know what, I should be smoking right now. And then we did a recheck. We did a recheck on the doctor. And we realized the doctor himself was a smoker who had been trying to quit smoking for a long time. So based on his personal experience, he thought I would help the client. But what did he end up doing?
Reinforcing it.
Ended up suggesting and then reinforcing that you will not be able to quit smoking. In fact, that's where belief comes into play. There are so many people who will tell you, the moment I reach a doctor's clinic, I feel good. अभी तो दवाई तो छोड़ दो, डॉक्टर ने देखा भी नहीं होता है. Then to I start feeling कि यार अभी बुखार उतर गया. Belief says doctors make you feel good. It's faith and belief. Okay. Now, if the same person whom you have so much faith in tells you quitting smoke will be a difficult job, now what happens? It's difficult. Your mind says yes, it's difficult. Again, psychologists, well, in fact, psychologists, I feel, that's my personal opinion, any successful therapy, they have unknowingly or knowingly used hypnosis. Because psychology is about influencing the person into understanding what is good for him and then helping him do it. Though they don't use a process of putting a person into a relaxed state and then giving them suggestions, but necessarily it requires the client to be in a receptive state. Which means, in a way, a psychologist is using hypnosis, but maybe unknowingly. Yes? This is actually an explanation that was given to me by a psychologist who had done hypnotherapy, saying that, Nitin, what I've learned after hypnosis is that we were using hypnosis any which ways, but we did not know the process to it. So we were leaving that inducing hypnosis to chance. Now that we know the process and we know where to use it and what are the things that we have to be careful about, we can process the information in a more structured way. So an example of how psychologists can unknowingly create a problem, and then I'll come to hypnotherapists also. So there was this client who had gone to a psychologist speaking about all the problems that he has had in his life, and was talking about how his life has been ruined to a large, his words were, I'm very sad about my life because I've made a lot of mistakes. And he went on to speak about all the mistakes that he has committed. The psychologist, for some reason, ended up saying, so okay, I understand you have ruined your life. Now what? This person got up, went home, has been paralyzed since that day, has not moved. All his medical reports are normal. And the only thing that doctors have told the family is this person has lost the will to live. That statement coming from an authority saying you have ruined your life is a deal breaker completely. So there are bigger consequences. If I come to hypnotherapists, sadly they are the worst of the lot. Though ideally they are supposed to know about this nicely. Why? Because a lot of hypnotherapists also believe in metaphysics, they also believe in existence of paranormal, and somewhere down the line they start having this ego kick that, I know a lot more than others know. Some of them may claim to be psychics also. Again, nothing against psychics, but I'm just talking about what can happen. Now when a client comes to you and you look at a client and you say, you know what, I can see a lot of negative energies around your body. The client has no idea of proving or disproving because he cannot see. Maybe you are actually a psychic and maybe you can actually see it. So I'm not debating whether you're a psychic or not. What I'm saying is that information supposed to be told to a client? You may keep it for your reference. That while I'm working with my client, these are the things that I have to take care of.
They want to create an atmosphere.
But then that atmosphere can have a major side effect to it.
Always.
So then you have people who are spiritual healers. Some of them do brilliant jobs. So again, no issues with them. But some of them then will talk about how it's all about talking to spirits, how it's all about talking to angels, how it's all about talking to spirit guides, to an extent where people at times have these delusions where they don't understand the difference between what is imaginary and what is real. Now when you stop having the differentiation, what happens? You are termed as a psychosis case, right? Now that's a bigger problem. So in terms of the way we use words, in terms of the way we give suggestions to people, we have to understand that hypnosis is what we are doing, knowingly or unknowingly. And we have to be very careful with every word that we are using. Now I understand it's difficult to be aware of every word that you are speaking. Okay? And I completely understand that. So what we have done is, we have created a set of certain things that you have to be careful about. Who are the people that you especially have to be very careful in front of? Okay? In other words, what are the laws that govern suggestibility, or that govern how quickly the hypnotic state can be induced? First is what we call as law of reverse action or psychology. Now this can be used very effectively if you would like to. All of you just close your eyes. Don't think of an elephant. An elephant. What is the first thing that comes to your mind?
I see a big elephant.
you'll start imagining an elephant, right? So that's reverse psychology, where I'm asking you to do something by actually telling you not do it. And how many of us do these with our children? टीवी देखने के बारे में सोचना भी मत, and the child is thinking, अच्छा ये तो सोचा ही नहीं था यार. Correct, it's the same thing. Now, and it's sad what we do with children. No? My heart really goes out to children, because unknowingly we really make their life miserable. You tell a child, खेलने के बारे में सोचना भी मत. And the child says, oh, I was actually thinking of studying, but now that you have told me, I realize that's also an option that I have. So be careful. You tell your, there are so many times when we do it with our spouses, with our parents, unknowingly. And then we say, तो हमारी बात सुनते ही नहीं है. They are actually listening precisely to what you have told them. So when you are giving reverse suggestions, be very careful. That's the natural tendency of the mind. Then the law of repetition. When you repetitively tell people something, the mind starts becoming comfortable with the idea and then starts accepting the idea. So for all of you who feel that, अभी हमारे साथ या बच्चों के साथ हो गया जो होना था, now how do we correct the issue? So repetitively reinforce the fact that, they have improved or they are improving. As far as possible, don't repeat as far as possible, refrain from repeating negative suggestions to your children and to people around you. It also follows a basic principle: the more we do something, the better we get at it. So all your affirmations, there is this huge hue and cry about the idea of affirmation. That affirmation is good, affirmation is bad, affirmation is useful, affirmation is useless. For people for whom it works because of law of repetition, because they repetitively keep telling themselves. For people for whom it does not work, it still does not work because of law of repetition. Because if you've ever seen, let's say I don't have any money at all, and so what does the affirmation tell me? Affirmation says, close your eyes and repeat to yourself, I have a lot of money. So I close my eyes and I say, I have a lot of money. There is this soft voice that tells me, क्या झूठ बोल रहा है? Yes? So now there are actually two simultaneous affirmations which are happening. One that says I am rich, and another one that says, you know what, you're lying. Which of this would my mind accept? The one which is more known. The fact that I am lying, which is now a second whammy, because the mind starts realizing, bloody, you have been lying to yourself. Then people say, we keep talking to ourselves but we don't get any answers. Why? Because your mind is actually confused. How many of us put an alarm of 6 o'clock in the morning, and at 6 the alarm rings, and then we put it on snooze and we go off to sleep again. And then we put it on another snooze and we go off to sleep again. So the mind thinks, acha, abhi, if you wanted to get up at 6 o'clock, either get up or don't put an alarm na. So what do we learn? The mind starts realizing you're yourself not sure of what you want. So unless you give that clarity to your subconscious, how will the subconscious guide you to the right point B, or in this case churchgate? It also follows what we say, unconscious incompetence. This basically means in our life we are unconscious about a lot of our abilities or our inabilities. As we repetitively keep hearing things or we repetitively keep doing things, we go on to become conscious of our incompetence. Then we become conscious of the fact that we have started learning something. We become consciously competent. So if I have never seen a car in my life, I don't know how to drive. So I'm unconscious of my incompetence. When I come to a city, when I see a car for the first time, now I've seen a car, so I know there's something called as car, but I don't know how to drive it. So I'm conscious about my incompetence. Then I go and join a driving school. What happens in this driving school initially? I'm actually consciously observing everything that I'm doing. from my hands to my legs. I don't want music playing. I don't want people disturbing me. My complete focus is on what I'm doing. So I'm competent, but I need to be conscious about everything that I'm doing. And then as I keep doing it, today I can actually be talking on the phone, talking to a friend behind, changing the radio station, and still keep driving at the same time. Unconscious competence. All our beliefs that we say are creating problems for us have actually reached this state where they are operating in our life, but we are unconscious about them. Our work now is to reverse the process with a more appropriate belief. So second law is be careful with what are you repeating to people. One-off mistakes you can make, and I understand that, but see if you can correct the mistake rather than repeating the same mistake again and again. And this is a very important one. Law of dominance. When people consider you in a position of authority, they are automatically more receptive to the suggestions that you are giving them. So when you go to a doctor and the doctor tells you, "Ye dawai le lena," you don't question the doctor's dawai ke andar ingredients kya hai. Why? Because you feel that person knows what he is doing. Similarly, when you go to a temple and a religious guru tells you something, you don't question them. Why? Because you feel their authority on that subject. Though if the religious guru decides to give you a medicine, you may decide to question him, because that religious guru is not an authority in terms of medicine. Similarly, as a parent, when a child comes and asks you something, and when you give them a suggestion, you are in a position of dominance. A teacher in a position of dominance. A doctor, a psychiatrist, a spiritual healer in a position of dominance. So be careful with what you are repeating to people who consider you in a position of authority.